This is a public health announcement brought to you by Heather Shepard.
The Primal Pioneer. Live an outdoor life.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Primal Pioneer podcast. I'm your host, Heather Shepard, radical health practitioner and creator of the Sunlight RX. Hey, I want to welcome you all back to the show after a long winter's nap, or should I say a beautiful winter reboot, a sabbatical reboot that I had in Mexico this winter. I was super fortunate to spend 3.5 months soaking up the sun, getting my Sunlight RX on, swimming in the ocean, and of course, eating lots of delicious Mexican food, which is probably my favorite cuisine. And the seafood there was amazing. It was super fresh. And the local farmers that I met literally melted my heart, and all of the delicious vegetables and fruits and homemade dishes that they had at the farmer's market. Oh, I was just in heaven. And honestly, I can't wait to head back down there for another visit. So this is the first episode after my return to the States from Mexico, and I'm super stoked to hit the ground running with today's episode about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, EMFs. Now, maybe you aren't sure what EMFs actually mean. Maybe you're new to the world of EMFs. If you're wondering if and how EMFs might be impacting your physical and mental health, if you're concerned with the rapid deployment of wireless technology and cell towers that's going on all over the world right now, this episode is going to teach you what an EMF is, why you need to be concerned about them, and how they impact your health in not so awesome ways. For those of you that run your own online business, for those of you that go to an office and work on a computer all day, maybe you're staying at home and working on your computer or devices all day. Maybe you attend school or college, which, by the way, even more so now than any other time in history, there are super high levels of EMFs in these environments, sadly. But there's things we can do about it, and that's what this episode is going to teach you about. You might also love your Netflix binges, your Instagram stories, or Facebook groups. And I want you to keep in mind that these are really beautiful ways we can stay connected. And this episode is going to be an eye-opening, empowering show teaching you how the artificial environment that these EMFs create set the stage for rapidly declining health. However, despite all the harmful side effects of EMFs, there's a lot you can do to mitigate your exposure. And during this episode, I'm going to start teaching you how you can do so to protect your health while staying connected. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's show all about EMFs. Today, I'm going to teach you what an EMF is and why you need to be concerned with your EMF exposure when it comes to health and healing. Now, this is a topic near and dear to my heart, as I've had firsthand experience of the declining health effects that come along with all our fancy modern gadgets, with our Google searches, with our iPhone emails, all these things that connect us into the internet, into our communities, and to all the social media platforms that go along with that. Yes, that's awesome, but there's a downside. They have some significant health effects, not the social media platforms themselves per se. I mean, it's a whole topic in itself. However, the devices we use to connect on these platforms and with one another are really the concern. I want to share my personal healing story around EMFs with you today, but before I go there, I want to briefly talk about what an EMF actually is for those of you new to this topic. This will help you understand how and why it's such an intense health threat, and will also help you start to connect the dots as to how you can improve your EMF environment. So to start off with, I'm just going to name the two types of EMFs. Number one are nature-based EMFs, and these come from things like sunlight, all the different light spectrums throughout the day found in sunlight. This stimulates very important and necessary physiological processes in our body. So everything from dopamine production and serotonin production, which are super important to our gut health, to helping your food move down the track into a nicely formed bowel movement. You all know how I love to talk about bowel movements. And dopamine and serotonin also allow us to feel good and sleep well. And so, interestingly, nature has designed us all to produce dopamine and serotonin when we are in certain spectrums of sunlight. Really cool, huh? Sunlight also has a big influence on our melatonin levels. So how you age, your energy levels, your ability to heal, your ability to prevent and recover from diseases like cancer, all really weigh heavily on how well you're able to recycle your melatonin. And we actually do this in AM sunlight. Another thing we get from sunlight is the vitamin D production. Vitamin D is this super molecule. It's actually a hormone, and it regulates our immune system. It helps to stabilize our hormones and keep a really nice balance of our hormones, helps us to feel energized. There are many, many things that vitamin D do in super beneficial ways for our health. Now, when you hear the word vitamin D, you may think of, oh, I take a vitamin D supplement. But I really want to bring an awareness around this, that the vitamin D, when I refer to it, is never in a supplement form. It's always referring to your ability to produce vitamin D from sunlight. And this is the way nature designed you and designed me to produce all of these really crucial elements to our health. They have huge, huge implications on the state of our health and our ability to heal. So one nature-based EMF is from sunlight, and this is not a detrimental EMF. Contrary to what we've been told, that we've been brainwashed to think that sunlight's dangerous and cancer-causing and harmful to our health, and that's total BS. It's just a huge lie. The big thing going on out there right now, they're saying #fake news, like vitamin D. You and I are designed to produce and make vitamin D when we're exposed to sunlight. So this type of EMF is very healthy. The higher one's solar vitamin D levels are, so your ability to make vitamin D from sunlight, literally all-cause mortality drastically falls. It reduces. All-cause mortality simply means your risk for all chronic diseases and dying from those diseases sharply falls the higher your vitamin D levels are from sunlight. And this is something my Sunlight RX ebook goes into full detail around, because you can't just go out into sunlight in the afternoon. Oh, hey, it's noon. I'm going to get my vitamin D on and go out there, and then you come in and you look like a lobster. This isn't the way we're designed to make vitamin D, and this isn't a healthy way for us to interact with these nature-based EMFs from sunlight. There's actually much more effective, beneficial ways to go about that, and I go into full detail with all of that in my Sunlight RX ebook, which you can head over to my site and grab a copy of to start learning about that ASAP. But that's one form of a nature-based EMF. This is a healthy EMF. It's health supportive. And so this means not all EMFs are bad or health damaging. The second EMF I'm going to talk about is non-native EMFs, also known as man-made EMFs. And I'll kind of use these two words interchangeably. So while nature-based EMFs are super supportive to our health, they have all these amazing benefits like sunlight on your dopamine, serotonin, melatonin, vitamin D, okay? It helps to reboot, restore, recycle these molecules in your body. Non-native EMFs have actually the opposite effect. And these compromise our health in really, really huge ways. Non-native EMFs come from our modern tech devices, okay? So often we dismiss or fail to consider the negative health effects that these non-native or man-made EMFs have on us because we can't see their impact. We can't see their frequencies with the human eye. And honestly, many of us have become so dependent and addicted to our devices that it's kind of like when the cigarette companies, when cigarettes first came out and people were saying, hey, these are causing throat cancer. I'm getting cancer of the tongue. I'm getting salivary cancer. Lung cancer is actually, interestingly, there's not a huge correlation to smoking and lung cancer, which is really interesting. There's bigger links to cancer of the throat, cancer of the mouth, cancer of the jaw, cancer of the salivary glands, and cigarette smoking. But when cigarettes first came out, there was no talk of this. It was like, yeah, this is even healthy for you. There's no dangers. Don't worry. And a lot of people were paid off to say these things and make these claims. However, obviously now we know that conventional cigarettes are super bad for our health for reasons that promote cancer and all sorts of degenerative diseases and just fill our lymph and our body with the high load of toxins. Okay, but at first we were told these didn't have any health effects. They didn't have any negative health effects. And the industry wanted to drag us along kind of in the mud for a while until it became so obvious that there were negative health effects that they're like, oh yeah, there are negative health effects. But by that time, everybody was addicted to cigarettes who was smoking them. So even if you told them that they had, negative health effects, it was going to give them cancer, a lot of people quit, but a lot of people didn't care. And to this day, they continue to smoke cigarettes because what happened in the beginning? Oh, they're safe. Let's get everyone addicted first. And then as, people start to get sicker and sicker, we'll admit, oh yeah, we were wrong. And these actually have negative health effects. But now everyone's addicted. So our product is still going to sell. That's exactly what's going on with devices and products that emit man-made EMFs right now. We're all addicted. We're all codependent. We have codependent relationships with our cell phones, with our computers. And so this is the place that they want us to be in, and it's the place we're in right now. So while you may have addictions to your devices, and while it may be a really huge part of your life and maybe even your business or your education process, this episode is going to help you start to understand how you can be connected into the internet and post on your social media accounts or, watch Netflix and yet still reduce your man-made EMF levels so they actually don't have the negative health effects that many of us, I'm just going to be frank, were in denial about. And I was in denial about it too. I honestly, I don't know if I was so much in denial about it, I'd say about 9 years ago, but I honestly didn't even know about them. And many people who ask me what I do today, I'm part of being a radical health practitioner. I say, well, I help people to mitigate their man-made EMF environment. And literally 85% of people are like, Heather, like, what's an EMF? And so now you all know what an EMF is after that short little definition there. We've got healthy ones from nature, such as sunlight, and we've got unhealthy ones that are man-made that come from our devices. So if you're wondering, well, is my device one that emits man-made EMFs? The answer is yes. All devices that are wireless emit a man-made EMF. So I'll give you a little short list here. So your cell phone, your laptop, your computer, your Wi-Fi router, anything wireless or Bluetooth in your house. Let's see, if you're hooked into a smart grid, if you have a smart meter on your home, if you can like turn on your heat while you're sitting in a restaurant enjoying your meal, but you don't want to be cold when you get home and you can program your heat from sitting in the restaurant. That's linked into the Internet of Things, and it's hooked into this smart grid. And this emits huge amounts of man-made EMFs. Cell towers, AM, FM, radio broadcasting towers, the satellites that are in the sky, these things are all sources of man-made EMFs. Many of these we can have control over how much we use these things, and we can even learn how to use them in ways that are not a detriment to our health, okay? And I want to share my story with you because when I first started putting out my healing business and creating my business, I had no idea about EMFs, but I quickly learned. About 9 years ago, I made this shift from primarily working outside, doing landscaping work, to starting my own online business. So I went from being outside, being in sunlight. A lot of these properties were rurally based, so I wasn't like in the middle of a city or downtown, doing this landscaping work. Most of this was like for really wealthy people who lived in rural areas, or just simply community gardens in rural areas. And this is where I did much of my work for years after acupuncture school. So at one point, I said about 9 years ago, I no longer want to work for anyone. I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. P.S. Sorry, Dad. Sorry, past employers. But I'm not a big fan of other people telling me what to do. So I said, I need to start my own health business. And also, I was out doing landscaping, which I love to be in the earth, and I love to put my hands in the dirt, and I love all the bugs and the earthworms. Like, I'm a total, like, earth nature nerd for sure. But I was like, I'm not reaching the people that I want to be reaching or doing the work that I really want to do, which is all about helping people heal. So I wanted to start putting this out there because I knew it was a huge part of my purpose. So I went from spending the bulk of my time outside, trimming trees, pulling weeds, planting tomatoes, pruning fruit trees, all of this stuff, to sitting at my computer, creating my website, okay, posting on social media to try to build my audience and put my message out there, and taking client calls on my cell phone. So when I look back, I can see that my EMF exposure, and let's just take this on a scale from 0 to 100, went from about a 20, okay, so, just texting and phone calls here and there, to pretty much 100 almost overnight when I made this work shift. And honestly, I didn't think much of this because I had no idea about the negative side effects of EMFs. And really, I didn't know this was going to be a concern that I was going to bump up against. But 2 months into the building and creating process of my business, I started to notice some new health shifts and concerns. So things like my energy levels, they totally dropped. My sleep was disturbed, and almost and often to the point of insomnia. Like some nights I'd be like, babe, I didn't even sleep. I'd wake up and say that to my partner. And this was so new to me, and I was really frustrated. I didn't know what was going on. My anxiety levels skyrocketed. And here's one that I wasn't expecting, is that I started to gain weight. So all of these things were going on, and I hadn't shifted anything except for my work environment. Now, I want to say, mind you, during this whole entire time, I was exercising a ton because I was now creating my own schedule and could go on, 1-2 hour hikes with my dog and partner. I was eating a super clean diet, which I always have. It was chock full of high octane protein, organic veggies. So when these health shifts started to creep in, I was confused and completely baffled as to why they were occurring. But, knowing me and what I like to do is like, I want to figure this out. Like, what's going on? So, I'd be like Googling things and listening to doctors and alternative doctors and holistic practitioners. And I was like, oh, maybe I need more of this supplement, or maybe I need to tweak my diet in this way, or maybe I need to do, more high intensity, workouts. I've tried all of those and literally none of them worked. And I was like, I have no idea. I struggled with these health concerns for about 2 years until I learned what was really going on with my health. And the core of this education that helped me turn my health around revolved around learning how to mitigate my EMF environment. One day, and looking back now, I can't even remember the name of the podcast, but I was listening to a podcast and somebody was talking about the negative health effects they were experiencing from EMF exposure. And all of the health effects they were listing, I was like, I have that. I have that. I have that too. I was like, oh my, I think this might be the missing link. So you bet that I started to learn all about EMFs, how they impact our health, the cells, the mitochondria, our hormones, our energy levels, our sleep patterns. And I learned where these EMFs come from, how they impact our sleeping, our home, our work environments. And then once I started to gain this information, I started to change my EMF exposure in my home, which is also my workplace, and then in the area in the bedroom as well, because when we sleep, we want our EMFs in the bedroom to be like super low, as in 0. And this is because during sleep, this is a time we repair, this is the time we heal, this is the time we regenerate. But if we're exposed to EMFs, man-made EMFs while we're sleeping, that process, so vital to life, cannot occur. So within a month of starting to implement all of these EMF mitigation practices that I was learning, I was sleeping like a baby. No longer had insomnia. I was no longer waking up in the middle of the night. I was no longer having trouble falling asleep. Within 2 months of continuing on this path, my anxiety was gone. My migraine headaches subsided. My energy levels were back on track. And actually, they were better than before. So that was a really awesome added bonus. And then 2.5 months in, I was back down to a healthy weight. So literally every single one of my health concerns that I thought came out of nowhere, that were related to a poor diet, or maybe I'm eating too much of this or not getting enough of that, or maybe I need this supplement. It was total BS. It didn't help. And I now see it was because my environment that I was living in was super poor. And those of you who have been following me for some time often hear me say you cannot heal in the environment in which you got sick in. And so every day I was in this environment that I got sick in, and that's why I didn't get better. And then when I started to change that environment, that's when my health started to change as well. People have side effects from man-made EMFs every single day, and they don't know it. I didn't know it. Most people don't know it. They don't know it because they can't see it, so we can't make this linear connection as to, oh, my Wi-Fi router is making me feel tired. Oh, my Wi-Fi router is causing me to have insomnia. We don't connect the dots here because we can't see the physical connection that the Wi-Fi router has on our cells. But there are thousands of studies on how man-made EMFs impact our cells, impact our body. And despite the studies, like, I love a really awesome study, but literally the proof is in the pudding. So if you're like, oh, show me studies, there are a lot of people on my groups or social media, they're like, show me studies, I want proof. And it's like, you are the proof. If you're not feeling well, that's the proof. And if you're around a lot of EMFs every day, Wi-Fi, you're on your cell phone, you have all these wireless things going on in your home, you have the earbuds in, you've got your Bluetooth speakers on. Listen, I did all of these things. I totally get it. And they're awesome with regard to their technology and features, but they're not awesome when it comes to our health. When I say the proof is in the pudding, like literally when you start to mitigate your man-made EMF exposure, you will undoubtedly see improved health. Now, one way that is more difficult, like the clients I have who live in areas like New York City, and if they're really sick, I honestly tell them straight up, you're dealing with cancer. This is a really intense chronic disease. And if we go back to the simple saying that you cannot heal in the environment in which you got sick, simply by staying in New York City, which has millions of people, which has an average of 7 devices per person. So I don't know the exact population of New York City, but we know it's in the millions. Times it by 7 for devices per person living in the city, and you will basically see that New York City is like living in a microwave oven. What do we know about microwaves? Let's just talk about this briefly. We're going to put it all out on the table here. We're not going to hold back. So microwaves, which, we don't use those anymore because we know they emit high levels of radiation, wink, right? Nobody out there is using those. We've gotten rid of those archaic radiation boxes, huh? So, but think of the days when we did use them. And let's say, I even remember this growing up, when we would have leftover meat, like let's say a leftover steak, and my dad would always, say to my mom, don't warm it up in the microwave. It'll be tough as leather. Okay. But when we think about this an analogy and we apply it to our own lives, because right now we are the piece of meat in the microwave. We're muscular, we're made of muscle. Our cells, our mitochondria produce water. That's one of their main tasks. And so like that steak in the microwave, if we were to do that, it would be dry as leather. Like my dad was right. Like, yeah, we all know that. It's going to be like a shoe leather when you put a piece of meat in the microwave. So right now, if you're living in a high EMF environment, you're the piece of meat in the microwave. And that might sound like weird, but literally your muscles, your cells, your mitochondria, they're dehydrated. And I like to look at this with my one-on-one clients by looking at the BUN to creatine ratio. There's several other things to look at, but that's one classic one. That ratio is important to look at because this will tell me, it's a reflection as to how well your cells and your mitochondria are producing water, okay? And if you're not producing enough water, this is really huge with regard to your susceptibility to things like cancer and all chronic diseases. Insomnia, anxiety, also really highly linked to your ability to produce water and use water at the mitochondrial level. These are things that we want to keep in mind. Like, honestly, if you're around these EMFs, you are the meat in the microwave. Okay, so you all have heard some of my side effects when I started to, be in a higher EMF environment. What I began to see with my sleep, my energy levels, my weight, migraine headaches, all of these things were symptoms that I experienced when being around a high EMF environment. And these could also be symptoms that you feel as well, but there's a lot of other symptoms that I want you to be aware of so you can keep an eye out for, hey, actually, maybe I have that, and wow, maybe it's linked to EMF. So I'm going to list those out here for you just so you can bring more of an awareness to, hey, maybe my EMF environment is actually contributing to my negative health symptoms that I've been struggling with for so long that haven't actually been rectified with diet, with more exercise, with juice fasting, with getting more curcumin in my diet, etc. So keep an eye out for these. Insomnia, disturbed sleep, anxiety, depression, nosebleeds or bleeding issues, heart palpitations, heart arrhythmias, low energy, disrupted hormones. Infertility is a big one, cancer, poor digestion, autoimmunity, migraine headaches, vertigo, tinnitus, which is ringing in the ear. And this could be also spontaneous tinnitus. So maybe it like comes out of nowhere and suddenly like, oh, one of your ears goes out. Like I had this experience when this is really like, oh man, this breaks my heart right now to this day. But I got back from Mexico and I was like so stoked to get a new Apple laptop because mine totally crashed in Mexico. I think the humidity like completely wiped it out, and I'd had it for several years. So it was, to be honest, I was due for a new one. But I got back and literally I got into Tucson, Arizona because we drove down to Mexico. And I was like, let's go to the Apple store. I'm psyched. Let me get a new computer. So I go in and I get a brand new MacBook Pro 2020, and I get home. I even made a YouTube video on this for people so they could see the levels of EMFs coming off of the new MacBook Pros in the different years. But I was like, wait, I started to use it and I'm like, this is kind of eerie. Like I'm experiencing some of the same negative health effects that I had when I started my online business. And I was like, what's going on? So I immediately knew, like, this has to be EMF related because I had this exact same experience with EMFs. So that's the first place that I looked just from my experience. And wouldn't you know that I measured the EMFs and the radio frequencies, particularly coming from my MacBook Pro 2020, okay? I was floored. I was like, this is insane. Like the MacBook Pro, was it a Pro? It was a MacBook Apple laptop that I had prior to that. I think it was like a 2014. And literally the radio frequencies coming off of that one, the 2014 model, was super low. It was really low. It was like 0.1, okay? The new 2020 model was like 14, 15, sometimes it would go up to the 20s. And the units that I measure with, anything above 0.003 is considered unsafe to our physiology and biology in our DNA, like it's in like cancer causing radiation mode. So I was like, whoa, okay, that answered my question. And now I have to return my laptop and like go to a older refurbished model because I'm not going to sacrifice my health in order to do this podcast or to write a blog. Like I love doing those things, but what good is it if I'm going to be literally dehydrating my cells and making myself sick and literally killing myself in the process? It's not worth it to me. So another side effect I had of that, because I was just listing these side effects of the EMFs for you, was this spontaneous tinnitus, which is like, tinnitus is ringing in the ear, but sometimes like I would be working on this new 2020 model, the Apple MacBook Pro, and like suddenly my ear would just go out. And so like I'd lose hearing in one ear, and then I'd like step away from my computer and I'd go outside and I'd do my Sunlight RX until it came back into balance and my hearing came back, and then I would go back in, and then I would just keep having these experiences. And so we don't often connect the dots between our EMF exposure and the negative health effects that we're feeling. And okay, so just side note, in the show notes, there's a YouTube video showing me measuring my 2020 MacBook Pro, the radiation levels, versus my 2014 model. So if you want to see an up close, personal, and like live rendition of that, please go and check that video out. So most of us don't connect the dots between these health symptoms that we feel after being exposed to man-made EMFs. And often we don't consider these symptoms because they're not considered pressing, they're not considered urgent. It's not like it's an emergency and somebody's legs cut off and has to be, rushed to the hospital. These are things that we've actually learned to live with, or that have just become disturbing nuisances with regard to our health. But, I'll take this pill or this supplement or this prescription, or make sure I eat a lot of spinach or superfoods to try to counter that. When really the root of the issue, like, these things won't fully improve until we learn how to mitigate our EMF exposure. I want to take a second to share some super exciting news with you all, especially if you're resonating with this show right now, having several aha moments, connecting the dots between your EMF exposure and your health struggles. Right now, I'm offering a 5-week EMF 101 course. This is a virtual course that teaches you the exact EMF protection strategies that I use to protect myself while running my online business, and is the exact same guidance I offer all my one-on-one clients when it comes to helping them mitigate their EMF exposure to help them have better health and healing outcomes. This course will teach you how to use your computer, how to use your laptop and other tech devices so you can stay connected and keep your health protected at the same time. You can find the link to my EMF 101 course in the show notes, or head over to heathershepard.com/EMF 101 course. Now, back to the show. If you're someone out there who at this point you're wondering, okay, what is my EMF exposure like? What is my EMF environment like? Like, how do I begin to pay more attention to this? So here's how you can start doing so. I would ask yourself these questions, and you could hop over to my site, heathershepard.com, Heather with an AR at the end, to take my health assessment survey. And that survey is designed to give you a clear idea as to the degree of what your EMF exposure is like and how it might be impacting your health. So head over to my site and take the health assessment survey, and you'll get an idea of what your EMF levels are like and how they're impacting your health. And also, here's some questions that you can ask yourself to help get you started. Are you exposed to Wi-Fi daily? If yes, is it for a few hours a day, several hours? Is your Wi-Fi router on for 24 hours a day? Okay. If you answered yes to just that question, your EMF levels are super high. Okay. And I'll just drop this little fact bomb in there for you all, but Wi-Fi is in this range of something called pulsed frequencies or pulsed EMFs, meaning that it creates this pulse that different frequencies are released within that pulse each second that let's say your Wi-Fi router's on. It's emitting a certain kind of radio frequency pulse. Now, nature emits pulses. Of course, the wind changes and the pulse of the earth changes. A cloud comes over the sun and the EMFs emitted from that shift. Now, when nature makes these changes, it's like, think about going over a road and you're going on like this like really hilly road. It's like up and down and up and down, and there's like those sharp curves. And in nature, it's like that road, when we make these turns, is super smooth. Okay, so the wavelengths created are like, okay, yeah, this is an up and down, like kind of windy road, but the ride is smooth. There's no bumps. It's like the smoothest ride, no turbulence you've ever felt. Okay, that's how nature's pulse operates. Well, non-native or man-made EMFs that are in the pulsed range, like Wi-Fi, they have this pulse that's super jagged, and it doesn't have this smoothness to it. It's like going up and down those hills, and there's like literally potholes and divots and speed bumps that are like, Mexico speed bumps, which is literally like, 4 feet high in the air, and you have to like go over the speed bump. That was a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think you get my drift there. So the pulse frequencies give off this super jagged, like pulsed frequency that is actually, your cells are really sensitive to it. They don't like that frequency. Your mitochondria doesn't like it. Your brain waves don't like this frequency. Your heart rate, okay, these really electrical organs, your brain, your heart, they don't do well in these pulsed frequencies. Well, each second your Wi-Fi router is on, it's emitting somewhere between 2.4 billion and 8 billion microwave pulses per second. That's insane. Like, think about if you're in that environment, you're getting exposed to 2.4 to 8 billion pulsed microwave frequencies per second. That's like insane, that effect it has on your health, on your cells, on your energy levels, on your ability to heal. Like, you cannot heal in that environment. And that's why I tell people who live in New York City, it's going to be really hard. Like, I appreciate and value your desire to heal. This is what I say to, a client in New York City who comes to me, let's say with cancer. I really want to support you around this, and I will support you wholeheartedly, and I will give you all of the answers, and I will show you how to get there. But your biggest step that you're going to have to make, and you don't have to make it right away, but it has to be part of the game plan, is that you have to exit New York City. You cannot heal around that environment. So think about all the Wi-Fi that's in a place where like millions of people live. LA, New York City, San Francisco, Portland, okay? All the big cities around the world, all getting exposed to billions of microwave frequencies per second simply by being around Wi-Fi. Now, there's a really simple fix to this that I teach people about on my EMF 101 course. But if you're around Wi-Fi, that's why I say if you just answered yes to that question, you have a high EMF load. Okay, let's continue with the questions. Do you use your cell phone? Okay, and if you do, and meaning you use your cell phone when it's in like full cell mode, it's not in airport mode, so it's on like, it's hooked to the cell tower and or to Wi-Fi and or to Bluetooth. And then if you hook them up to all three, that even, adds more EMFs to the whole cell phone use as well. Do you hold it up to your ear? Do you carry it in your pocket or on your body? Some women that I know, I run a Facebook group called the Keto Cancer Solution. And over the last year, I've had more and more women in their 20s and early 30s reach out to me and say, hey, Heather, I have breast cancer and I don't want to do chemo. I don't want to do radiation. Can you help me? What can we do? And I say, yes, of course I can. And then I ask them this question because I'm so curious. I say, by any chance, have you carried your cell phone in your bra? Do you go for a run with it in your bra? Do you go to the gym and work out with it? Do you walk around your house and listen to your podcasts, with it on in your bra? And over 80% of them say yes, they've spent a chunk of time, even if it was for a few weeks at a time, to months to years, okay? Most of them say, yes, I've done this. And there's been some interesting studies, I believe, in Denmark showing that the correlation between a really different type of breast cancer that's starting to form in women who carry their cell phones in their bra. So heads up to all you ladies out there, protect this area. It's so sacred. It's such a beautiful part of being a woman, and it's such a huge part of our health and our hormones. So if you're a serial cell phone in the bra type of lady, I would really encourage you to shift that practice. Another question I ask around cell phone use is, do you hold your cell phone in your hand to text, to send emails, to scroll social media? This is going to have really huge effects on the health of your entire body. So those questions around Wi-Fi and cell phone use, are typically the most common way we're exposed to EMFs today, man-made EMFs. And so those are two questions that I would invite you to just start exploring. If you answered yes, literally to any of those questions, then it's probably, I'm not even going to say probably, it is a good idea when it comes to your health and the health of your children. If your child's sitting like at home using their tablet or their iPad, or now I think most kids are getting like tablets as part of school, Chromebooks as part of school. This might seem like an awesome technological advancement, but this is a really bad idea. It's a bad idea to give kids wireless technology. And you might be thinking, Heather, that's like a little bit extreme. Or if my kid doesn't use wireless technology, they're going to feel left out. They're going to feel like an alien. And my suggestion to you is, one, there's safe ways to use technology and not have it impact your health. Two, is your child's health more important than, a homework assignment they have to do on the laptop or on the tablet, on the iPad, the Chromebook, these things? Start to bring these topics up with other people in your community, other students, other parents who are open to hearing it, and then bring it to your principal of the school, bring it to your superintendent and say, this is a huge concern. And actually, my child isn't going to use this technology, so please give me some safer alternatives. That is something I wouldn't mess around with. This is a huge way to advocate for your child's health, because right now in the Keto Cancer Solution group and cancer, when I look at cancer rates and statistics all around the world, it's no longer more common for an older person to get cancer. Now, the highest cancer rates are in teenagers and young adults. So the one thing that has changed to influence this shift so quickly, drastically, and dramatically is our exposure to EMFs. So the important thing to know, and honestly, what I wish I had known before starting my online business, is that you can still be connected while mitigating your EMFs. And there's a bonus side effect. You preserve the most important asset of your life, which is your health and your child's health, right? So a really simple tip to start with is to never carry your cell phone on your body. And if or when you do, make sure it's in airport mode. So stop, exercising with your cell phone on your body. Stop going into the grocery store or running errands with your cell phone stored in your back pocket or your front pocket. Literally, we're seeing more reproductive cancers in both men and women who carry their cell phone in their front or back pocket. And when it comes to men, sperm count reduces in, I think it's as little as 2 hours of carrying your cell phone, either like resting it on your lap and cruising around in your car or traveling or driving, or 2 hours of exposure of the cell phone stored in your front pocket. So this is really big. If we want to help preserve our health now, yes, but also the health of future generations, these are really important considerations and steps towards improving our health that we need to take. For those of you interested in learning more about EMFs, particularly around how you can mitigate your exposure to improve your health, I would highly encourage you to join my EMF 101 course. It will change your life, your health, and healing capacity big time and for the better. Thanks so much for listening to the Primal Pioneer podcast. I hope that this episode has helped bring more insight to the world of EMFs and your exposure, what an EMF is, and how they may be impacting your health, and how they're literally the culprit to pretty much all of our current health struggles and chronic diseases present day. However, the really important take-home point I want you to know is that there are very proactive, healthy ways to improve your EMF environment while staying connected, while rocking out your online business, while continuing your love for posting on social media, and even watching your occasional favorite Netflix series, okay? This isn't about getting rid of everything and going back to nature and living in the cave. Hey, if you want to do that, awesome, go for it. But really, my take home is you don't have to do that in order to support your health around EMFs. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps more and more people just like you get to the root of their health struggles, brings more insight to topics like EMFs that doctors don't talk about today, that we don't correlate to our health symptoms. And a lot of people are struggling with their health. They're bumping up against the same issues that they've been struggling with for years without much success. So just by you rating and reviewing helps to spread the word about, hey, there's a lot you can do about these things, and the Primal Pioneer podcast is going to help you get there. Don't forget to take a screenshot of this episode, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me at sunlight_RX. And I will be sure to reply, give you a heart, give you a thumbs up, give you a little comment when doing so. Thanks again for tuning in, and see you next week.